So welcome everyone to the third week of Healthy for Life. I hope that the first 2 weeks have been treating you well and you've found some new things to think about and new challenges that you've been enjoying. Today, we are going to talk about exercise. We're going to switch our focus from food to exercise just a little bit. So let me get the presentation started and we'll get going. All right. So I called this presentation Move It. Physical activity is for every body because it truly is for every body. And I know that we've got all kinds of different people on the call today with all different kinds of abilities, likes, needs. So we're going to try and respect all of those as we go through this presentation. And just keep in mind that if there's anyone out there who uses a wheelchair or who uses other devices to get around, that when I say walking, that's kind of a generalized term for physical activity. And I will really try and say physical activity and give some options that can apply for anyone, no matter where you are physically. So before we get there, I'm wanting to hear back from you about how your last week went. I know that it was the first week for most of you that you were actually tracking calories with your food. And I'm wondering if there was anything this week that surprised you. And while you're thinking about that, I wanted to share with you that I actually switched and started using my Fitbit app because I already showed you I have a Fitbit and I love it and I use it every day. So I've been using the Fitbit app to track my calories and my food. And it's been very interesting to me to see how the calories actually turn out, because there's some days where I'm actually not eating as many calories as I thought I was. And there's some days that I'm eating far, far more than I thought I was. So that's been really interesting. And the other thing I noticed was that those of you who are using apps might be aware of this, that when you go into the app and you type in like 2% milk or something like that, it'll come up with a big long list of a whole bunch of different, these are a whole bunch of different 2% milks that you can choose. So it was really interesting because I was trying to put my latte in one of the days, and I happened to look at the macronutrients. And by macronutrients, I mean percentage of fat, carbohydrate, and protein. Those are referred to as macronutrients. And I noticed that even though I had a latte, there was no protein showing. It was showing 0%. And me being a registered dietitian, I'm like, that's not right. I had milk. Milk has protein. So I went in and I clicked on the nutrition facts on the latte I had selected, and it was not accurate. It was not showing that there was any protein. So I was like, okay. So then I went back in and I selected a different way to track my latte. I actually had to go in and separately enter 2% milk, espresso, coffee, and syrup separately rather than just using the latte option. So that was really surprising for me. Let's see some of the comments that you all made about this. Difficult at times to track, that's for sure. I'm surprised how much I can eat if I eat vegetables and how few carbs some of them figure out to. I was surprised by the sweet potato. There's a big difference between eating a sweet potato and eating a regular potato as far as how many carbs or how many calories are in it. Surprising the amount of calories in the sauces I was eating. Oh, yes. Eating a lot of food, but wasn't meeting my calorie goal, just healthier choices. Look at that. I never realized how many calories are in food and any easy way to calculate calories in my homemade food. Yeah, homemade food is definitely, those homemade recipes is something that a couple webinars from now, we're going to talk far more about that. But the homemade recipes can be something that can be very time consuming the first time, but depending on the app that you're using, once you go in and you take the time to input, like if you're having vegetable beef barley soup, once you take the time to go in and enter that, then you can use that same recipe over and over again. And most of us, we do use like a cycle of foods, of homemade foods, especially that we enjoy and that we like in our house. So once you've got that first hurdle over of entering the recipes into your app, or doing the calorie calculation for your recipe and your serving size, then usually that gets easier. But yes. By writing down, I found that I hit my limit sooner than I had planned for Tuesday. Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? Sauces and dressing. MyFitnessPal told me I was starving, but I was not. Isn't that interesting? I know. Just remember what I said about human metabolism being notoriously resistant to simple math, because it really is. That's why I said it was a starting place for you. I discovered I go off plan more frequently in the evening when I am brain tired. Absolutely. Extremely common. Happens to me, happens to a lot of people I know. Use my Samsung Health app and it was easy to track. Yeah, not as hard as you thought it was. What's the best food calorie tracker app for the homemade food? It really depends on the person and if you want to buy one or if you don't want to buy one. My best advice for that, for choosing an app, is to try some different ones. So especially the free ones like MyFitnessPal, maybe try those first and see if those will suit your needs. And then you can do more research about which one works the best for you. Because honestly, I can't say which one is going to work the best across the board because everybody has different needs. I have a question about once you hit your calories, but then you work out and it adds more allowable calories to eat. Yeah, it's interesting how, because the Fitbit app does the same thing where it adds calories as I go through the day, and as I add activity, it'll keep adding calories to it. So the way that I think about that is I know in my head, I need to have 2,000 calories or less every day. So even though the Fitbit app does that as it goes through the day, I don't personally find that particularly helpful. What I actually look at is how many calories I've taken in, and I compare it to how many I know I'm going to need for the day. So maybe that might make it easier for you. What's the best way to do banana bread? Are you making it yourself, or are you using a store-bought kind of banana bread? So if you're making it yourself, definitely use an app where you can enter the recipe, especially if you make modifications to your banana bread to make it healthier. Because chances are, if you just go in and choose a random banana bread that's on the list, it's probably going to be made with white flour, lots of sugar. It's not going to have anything else good added to it. Because I make a healthy version of banana bread that's really good, where I will put applesauce in it instead of some of the oil. I use a healthier oil for that part of it. I use whole wheat flour. I add pecans to it. So it's not a low calorie food, but it is healthier than what it might say on some of the trackers. But it really has to do with, how much work you want to put into it too, because the calories are going to be really similar, even if it doesn't keep track of all those other micronutrients, if you will. Remembering to measure was surprising. Yeah, I hadn't done the full-on food tracking for quite a while. And so I did get out the measuring cups and I measured out, this is what a cup of milk looks like. This is what 3/4 of a cup of cereal looks like, so that I had that in my head. And it was very interesting to me how close I was on some things and how far off I was on other things. I have to balance carbs and the blood sugar increases. It's interesting when you find out grilled cheese sandwiches for breakfast is a good thing as far as blood sugar as opposed to Cheerios. Yeah, that has to do with the fact that grilled cheese has more fat in it than Cheerios does, because that slows it down and it decreases your carb load a little bit. Do you want to eat more though? I'm not sure what that means. You can take off that. Yes, more calories. Do I need to eat more calories if I'm not hungry to keep up my metabolism? No, you don't. I actually ran into that myself too, where I was tracking my calories and it was saying I was lower than I was expecting it to be. So then I found myself thinking, oh my gosh, I got like 200 calories here that I can play with at the end of the day. I should have something more to eat. And then it's like, whoa, wait a second. Would I have done that if I wasn't tracking my calories? Am I even hungry right now? And the answer was no. So it's like, okay, all right, yeah. So it can go the other direction too. Healthy brownies, brownie mix, and a can of black beans. Yep. Yeah, you can substitute black beans in chocolate baking dishes, and it increases the protein, increases the fiber, increases the nutrients, and decreases the fat and the calories. So yeah, that's a great substitution. Banana bread can be made with applesauce instead of butter, right? Exactly. If the app is giving you more allowable calories to eat after working out, do you want to use them or no? I feel like I just answered that. Like, it's like you need to listen to your body, because remember that whole human metabolism thing, right? So you need to listen to your body when it says, you know, I'm full, I'm good, I have everything that I need. Part of this process is relearning how to communicate with your body, how to listen to your body's cues, and how to determine if I'm just thirsty and that's where this hunger is coming from, or if I'm actually hungry, or if I'm not hungry. Even though it's dinner time, I'm not hungry. Am I going to have a full meal, or am I just going to have I call it dinner-ish, because it's not quite as big as I might normally have for dinner. It might be a little bit smaller than that. So yes, all of those questions are great. I love to hear all of that feedback from you. So much of it is so common, and we're all in the same situation together. So that's wonderful. Tracking the food I eat sometimes makes me hungry or want to eat more. And that again is those food cues that we were talking about last time, right? Where you're thinking about food more and you're writing it down, you're thinking about it more. It's like, oh, aren't I hungry now? Don't I need some more? And you'll get more used to it as you go a little bit further. But if you find that it's making you hungry and it's really cueing you to want to eat more, try and eat the food that you're going to eat, like for lunch, for example. And then as soon as you're done, you think to yourself, I'm full, I've had enough to eat. As soon as you're done, that's when you write it all down. Don't wait, a couple of hours and then start writing down your food, because then it's been a while since you ate, you're more likely for it to trigger you. So that might be something you can try too. Yeah, using the smaller bowls and plates actually makes you realize you don't need all the food you would normally put on your plate. It's so true. It's so true. And it makes you feel like you're eating more too. Can you eat too little? And if so, what is the general cutoff? I would say if you know of any issues that you've had with eating problems, or if you have conditions like cancer, or there's some medications that can make you not hungry, then you should be aware of that in those circumstances. But if you're just you doing your regular thing, there's no medication, there's no conditions, and you don't feel hungry, then don't eat. Trust your body. It will tell you when it's time to eat. So don't feel like just because the calories that you calculated says you need to have more calories today, don't let that make you feel like you need to eat. Really start to develop that relationship with your body and trust what your body is telling you more than what is written on the paper or what you see in your app. All right. So we've kind of done a little of this already, just with the reflection question that I asked you. But if you haven't already and you have taken your weight for this week, I will give you just a minute here to add that to your weight chart and to draw that line so that we can start to establish that trend. So what you do is you put, a dot, or you mark the X on one spot on the weight chart, and then you put the dot or you mark the X on the next part on the weight chart, and then you draw the line from this one to that one. And that's what starts to give you that trend, up, down, even, right? Think about your food, maybe even pull it up and take a look at it. Were you able to fill it out each day? And how much of the food you ate would you call healthy? Because if you recall, last week when we talked about what makes a food healthy. So think about that when you look back at what you did in the last week. So I'm going to open up my handy dandy little Fitbit app. And I'm going to look at my food for the last week. Just kind of look through the days and the calories. So I actually didn't miss any days because I was kind of having fun with seeing it show up on the app and how much easier that was than actually writing it down. So I actually didn't miss any days this week, which was great, better than last week. So, and then take a look. For me, again, it's that darn sugar where I fall down. But what was it for you? So just make a note of how you feel like you did in the last week. Just whatever comes to mind. It doesn't have to be rocket science. Just think in your head, I feel like I did this really well. Like for me, I might say, I feel like I did really good tracking my food intake this last week. I feel like that went smoothly and I learned some things and I'm excited about it, or whatever it is for you. Caitlin asked the question, is there an overall option for food in MyFitnessPal? I'm not sure what you mean by that question. And yes, Laura, it is encouraging to see a visual representation of a line trending downward. It absolutely is. So Caitlin, do you have any clarification on your question? The overall option for food in MyFitnessPal? I'm not sure what that means. Okay, so if you need more time, feel free to take it. Oh, a way to see all your food for the last week. Let me get into MyFitnessPal and take a look at that. Since I've been using Fitbit, I know how to do it on the Fitbit, but it's been a while since I was in MyFitnessPal. I know there is a way to see it. I just haven't been in there for a while. So let me take a look at that and get back to you. All right, so I agree, Sasha. I think there is a way to do it, but let me look into that, or if anybody on the call knows what it is, then help us out. But otherwise, I'll look into it and I'll get back to you all. So what is physical activity, right? So often it feels like this is something we have to do. We're guilted into it. It's on the should-do list, not the want-to-do list, right? In my opinion, physical activity is any movement that gets you up and moving, right? Whether it's gardening, walking the dog, going to the grocery store, cleaning your house, going to a class at the gym, maybe you play sports, who knows what it is. Any movement that gets you up and moving, that is physical activity. And I would like to say that all the research shows, everybody that I've talked to agrees that for overall health, for your overall health, deliberate physical activity most days is critical. So I'm not saying you got to go out and run a marathon or you have to do an hour fitness class every day. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you think in your head, I haven't really been very active today. I'm going to get up and do something. Maybe I'm just going to neaten up the whole house. Maybe I'm going to take 15 minutes just to neaten up the whole house. I'm going to run from that room to that room, putting the stuff away, and I'm just going to get up and walk around. Maybe you're going to get up and you're going to walk around the house a couple of times. If you have a dog, maybe take the dog for a walk. Anything like that works for you. Just being deliberate about it, remembering that it's important for you to say, yeah, my body is important. It's where I live. So, and it needs to move. It shouldn't stay in the same position all day. So focus on what you like to do first. And I asked you that question when it came to healthy food, and I'm going to ask you that question now when it comes to physical activity. think in your head, what is something that I actually like to do that requires me to move my body? What is it? Is it playing with the grandkids? Is it dancing? Is it yard work? I really love yard work. I'm not saying it's easy, but I really like it because I'm outside while I'm doing it. I really like to do that. So that's kind of where, you got to focus where your heart is with physical activity, because if it's something where you just go grind through it every single time, then you're not going to stick with it. So really you got to think, where's my heart with physical activity? What do I enjoy? And even if there's something you did in the past that maybe you can't quite do right now, you could work yourself that direction. Just think to yourself, okay, this is something I've really enjoyed. Maybe my body isn't quite up to that right now. So how do I get there? How do I get back to doing those things that I enjoy? So sometimes that can be a good way to encourage yourself too. Then think about variety. If you think about physical health, I think about it as a three-legged stool. So if you take off any of the legs, what happens to the stool? If you can imagine a three-legged stool. So there's one there, one there, one there. What happens if you take off any one of those legs? It falls over, doesn't it? It's not balanced. So cardiovascular, that's stuff that gets your heart rate up, maybe brings up a little bit of sweat. Strength, most of us know what that is. Weightlifting is probably the first thing that comes to mind, but body weight exercises like squats in your house, push-ups, anything that you do that makes those muscles burn a little bit, but maybe not so much heart rate, that's strength. And then of course, flexibility. So that's how we stay safe. That's how we feel good, is having that flexibility, whether it's yoga, whether it's stretching while you're watching TV, anything like that can really help with your flexibility. So you need to have all three things at some point during your week. That's what I would say. So then you think, what do I like to do in those three areas? And it might be that there's something you can do that incorporates all three of those things into one. And that works too. Balance every day. I've already said it right out. I love fitness trackers, but I'm like a weirdo that way. And it's super easy for me to do it because I have the Fitbit Charge and I use it as a watch. And it also notifies me when I get messages on my phone. So it's got a lot of really cool things that it does, in addition to tracking my calories and reminding me when I'm not being active during the day. So it really works well for me. I'm not saying that it works well for everybody. Not everybody likes Fitbits. There's lots of different activity options, or maybe you don't even want to use a tracker. But that is a resource that's out there for you. So aim for activity at least 3 days a week. But like I said, deliberate physical activity most days. Now remember, you're not doing a class most days, right? You're not going out running a marathon or hiking a mountain most days. What you are doing is just that deliberate physical activity. Sitting. Like I saw the person say, I read a lot, so I can be pretty sedentary. So I bought myself a little pedal machine that I can pedal while I'm sitting and reading. Those are super cheap. They're like a little mini, basically it's just a base and it has pedals that stick out and you put your feet on them and it just goes around in a circle. Yeah, that's a good idea. Walk while I listen to an audiobook. You guys, audiobooks are the best thing ever, not just for long road trips, but also for walking, or if you do the treadmill or any of that kind of stuff. Audiobooks are so much fun. There's sometimes that I like audiobooks, like when I'm not working very hard. And there's sometimes that I like music, like upbeat, fast-paced music, like when I'm trying to do cardio and get my sweat on a little bit, because that actually makes you move a little faster. So yeah, great idea. Okay, so this last bullet, you need to take this with a grain of salt. You need to remember your own body and your own place in this journey, because this recommendation is for the average person. And we've already said there is no such thing as an average person. You are an individual. So for the average person who doesn't exist, the recommendation is a total of at least 150 minutes of moderate or 75 minutes of vigorous physical activity per week. That's not per day, it's per week. So that is maybe a goal to get to eventually. If you have issues that you're taking care of, or your body doesn't like to get around a lot, take it really, really, really slow. Set yourself goals that will work for you. So if you're doing basically nothing, maybe you're going to look at, can I add 10 minutes 3 days a week? So maybe your goal is going to be 30 minutes a week, right? Of deliberate physical activity to start with. And then you can add to that as you go over time. So hopefully that makes sense, and that makes it more accessible if you are taking care of any of those issues. So here is some information, and I can send these. These are actual documents that I took a picture of and put it into the slideshow so that you could see this is actually what a registered dietitian would do if you were to go see her for a consultation, to determine where your physical activity level lies and how much to recommend and if it's safe for you. So let's just take a peek at this. I'm not expecting you to answer this necessarily right now, but let's just take a peek at this. Assess your level of physical activity. So you remember when you did your RMR and it asked you for your activity level. This is another way to think about that. So as we go through this, if you think to yourself, gosh, I think what I put in isn't right when I was calculating my calories, go back in and change it. So, do you currently participate in physical activity? Very important question. Yes or no? Describe your current physical activity habits by completing the table below. List all the physical activities you do in a typical week in the top row. For each activity, how many days each week you engage in the activity. On the days you do the activity, what are the total minutes in the day that you're involved in the activity? Now, remember, you don't have to do this right now. I'll send it out to the group so that you can do it later if you want to. But you remember, if I can jump back here real quick, you remember at the bottom of this, the recommendation of 150 minutes of moderate or 75 minutes of vigorous physical activity. This is how we figure out how many minutes you're getting, right? You just actually write it down. So you write, for example, on this thing, they have a sample on there, number of days per week, 3 days a week, minutes on each of those days, 15, total minutes per week, 45, intensity is moderate. So then you say, is this person, this sample person, are they meeting the recommendations for an average person? No, because they're getting 45 minutes of moderate activity each week. And the recommendation for the average person, who again doesn't exist, is 150 minutes. So there is room to grow for this person. Basically, that's what it's telling us. There's room to grow. And then you say, how much time do you spend sitting, reclining, or napping? And that's that sedentary. It's important to know how much of the day you're spending in sedentary activities. Okay, so here's the safety part of it. If you answer yes to any of the questions here, please follow up with your doctor prior to incorporating any additional physical activity. This is super important, actually. And because I can't see you in person and I can't assess each one of you, and I'm not a doctor and I'm not your doctor, it's important for you to consider these questions and then follow up with your provider before you start or add to your physical activity that you're currently doing. So you can see the questions that are on there. Again, I will send this out to the group, but if you answer yes to any of these questions, please follow up with your provider before you start or add to your physical activity. Safety first, right? Actually, safety second or third, but it's very important. There are things more important than safety, believe it or not, but it is very important. All right, so our little guy in the grass, time to find opportunities, right? Where in your week does your physical activity work? Maybe some of you are already doing physical activity, you already have it built into your schedule, and you know you're getting there and you're already there. That's great. But wherever you're at, think about your current activity and target a small change you can make. If you wear a fitness tracker like I do, and you're not yet at 150 minutes of moderate activity, or 75 minutes of vigorous activity in a week, maybe you could think about adding 2,000 steps each day, or maybe less than that. If 2,000 is, whoa, crazy, maybe 500 more. If you attend a gym, how can you change your workout at the gym? Is there something you could do to mix that up and challenge yourself in a different way? If you're not currently active, think about the safety questions and then think about where's a good place for me to start. Think about what you've done in the past that you enjoy. And if it's something that will fit for where you are at physically currently, then maybe you could start to incorporate that slowly back into your routine. You have to think about the times in the day that work the best for you. Some people are morning exercisers. They love to go and do their exercise before they get into work while they're fresh, and then it's done. They don't have to worry about it. Some people are afternoon exercisers. They don't like to wake up early, and they don't have any problem with fatigue in the afternoon getting in the way of doing that exercise. Some people, like Misty said, I break at 10 and 3 and walk on the treadmill for 15 minutes. It gives me a break from the computer during the day. That is a fabulous idea, absolutely fabulous. And in some ways, it's better to do more frequent, smaller bouts of exercise throughout the day to keep your body moving and not sitting in one place for so long than it is to do one great big exercise session all at once and then be totally sedentary the rest of the day. So that's an awesome option there that Misty suggested to the group. And Laura as well said, I move my treadmill into the home office. When my Apple Watch tells me to stand, I walk on the treadmill for 10 minutes. Yeah, great idea. If you don't have a treadmill, just go walk around your house. When I was in the office, then when my Fitbit would buzz, because it buzzes if I haven't gotten 250 steps in an hour, and when my Fitbit would buzz, I would stand up and I would walk down the stairs, across the building, back up the stairs, and then back across the building, back to my desk. And it really made a big difference in how I felt, especially if you have any stiffness or pain in your joints or your muscles. Incorporating that activity in smaller bouts throughout the day, oh, I can't recommend it enough. I really can't. I have arthritis issues in my back and in my knees. And so it's really important for me to get up and move constantly, because if I sit still all day, I will pay for it. So those kinds of ideas with the treadmill or moving around, or even just getting up and stretching, right? You can do it right now. Big stretch up and out, maybe roll your shoulders. Even doing that can really help. I run to my basement on my breaks and do 15 minutes each break. I incorporate my exercise into things I have to do, like I promised my kid. Hold on, it scrolled up so now I can't see it. I promised my kid I will walk to get her from school, which I have to do anyway, which gets me over 2 miles a day. Great ideas. Yes. Walk to the furthest bathroom in your house or building for bathroom breaks. Yeah. Walk or roll or however you get around, go to the furthest bathroom, because you're going to get more activity that way, right? Even a few extra steps, it does make a difference. It all counts. It all counts. And it is for everybody. Yep. I like it. And plus, additionally, if you drink lots of water, you'll be going to the bathroom more often. So see, it's a win-win. Less hungry, more activity. All right, so think about exercise goal setting. And this, if you remember nothing else from this presentation, please remember the classic fitness mistake. Too much, too fast. I see it over and over and over again. And I see people stop or say that they can't do things because they tried to do too much, too fast. And the unfortunate thing is, I know some of you on the webinar are young people and you haven't run into this yet. I'm still probably a young person to some of you who are on the webinar. But as we get older, our body needs more time. So go really slow, like slower than you think that you should. when you start adding physical activity in. Give your body the chance to get stronger and to get used to the activity, and then you will succeed. That's a classic fitness mistake. Too much, too fast. Slow it down. I know it's fun and you're engaged and you're excited and you want to do it all right now, but I do not want you to hurt yourself. Because you will if you go too much, too fast, and then you'll think, oh my gosh, this is miserable. I'm never doing it again. Baby steps. Remember that your goal, your first goal is just that. It's your first goal. I fully expect, and I hope that you will fully expect, that you will likely continue to change that goal as you go through time, as you get stronger, as you figure out how to fit it into your day or your schedule. And I can't say, speaking of schedules, I can't recommend it highly enough to put it on your schedule. I actually have the classes, because I said in the first, I actually teach classes, which really helps, because there's no mental conversation. Am I going to go do this today or am I not? I have to show up. But I know not everybody is in that situation, but it does work to put it on your calendar. Block off that time and say, there's no meetings in this time. I'm busy. I'm out of the office, whatever. Schedule it into your calendar. Bring your shoes with you. All kinds of things. Leave them out where you can see them. I mean, heck, if you want a big life change, get a dog. Your dog is going to, get you moving a little bit. Activity, sometimes more than other healthy habits, is about putting yourself first. I loved the idea that was on there. You have kids, right? You want to spend quality time with the kids. It's hard because maybe you work and you have other demands in your life. Maybe it's not work, but there's always other demands in your life. But use what you have to do along with what you want to do, because I am here to tell you that if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. And you can fill in daddy or grandpa or grandma or whatever, however you identify with that. If you're not happy, then you are not going to be the best you possible. And I'm here to tell you that physical activity actually physically causes endorphins for most people. It gets your blood moving. It helps you feel so much better, so that when you do have those activities that you do have those interactions with the people who are precious to you, then you can be all there for them. So don't feel bad about putting yourself first, taking that 15-minute walk just for you during the day. That is very important. You are very important, just like the people that are important to you are also likewise very important. And if you can combine the two together, like a recommendation in the chat where she goes to get her kids every day and she walks to do it, you're combining quality time with exercise. Win-win. Great idea. Love it. Don't let other demands interfere with what's best for you. Don't let it happen. Don't let work interfere with what's best for you. Don't let what other people say interfere with what's best for you. You really have to take care of your body, because it's where you live and your body needs to move. Okay. Sorry. I get on my soapbox a little bit about that. I think it's really important. So tips and tricks, and I already talked about this one. Drink lots of water. Why? Because then you have to get up and go to the bathroom more often, right? Yeah. And well hydrated, you're less hungry too. Set a reminder. We talked about that too. Put it on your schedule. Set out your shoes. Play with your children. Walking breaks. Rolling breaks. Upper body stretch breaks, right? Playing, vacuuming. My heart rate always gets up when I vacuum. Let me tell you, if I have a vest on or I have something, because I've just been sitting and I get up and I'm vacuuming the house, it comes off because I start moving my body and get warmed up. It absolutely is a great way to move. Sledding, snow shoveling, walking the dog, parking further away, taking the stairs, fitness videos, YouTube. There's so much to do. If you want to try yoga with Adrienne. She's got a ton of free resources that are out there. You can select by how long you want to do yoga, if there's a specific body part or focus that you have. If you want to try yoga, that's a great way to do it. You can do it right in your house with your computer. Yak tracks. If you don't know what yak tracks are, they're not quite mountaineering spikes. They're not that serious business, but they're really similar to that. They're a plastic thing that you put around the bottom of your foot that has extra traction, so that when we have these crazy spring snowstorms like we've been having lately, and it's icy and slippery outside, you don't have to skip your walk. You can put the yak tracks on and go and do it anyway. So those are all ideas for you. And I just realized that I forgot to show you the cartoon on this previous one. So here's some more ideas for you. Integrate more exercise into your daily routine. Instead of taking the elevator, climb up the side of the building. When you pass a coworker in the hall, insist on a game of leapfrog. Use kickboxing to post messages on your bulletin board. Stir your coffee with your toes. Arm wrestle your clients. Oh gosh, just the mental picture of somebody actually doing that would be very entertaining. They'd be adding activity to their day, wouldn't they? And then this one says, the only diet shake I recommend is the shake your booty makes when you exercise. Yes, absolutely. Oh yeah, and Teresa said that she knows yoga with Adrienne. Her daughter loves her. Oh, recommendations about dealing with pushback from spouse and loved ones. Yes, I do have recommendations for those. I'm not going to go into too much detail with that right now, but just start to think about how to talk to that person. And a couple of weeks down the road, I'm going to go into a lot of detail about how to deal with people who are barriers in your life. So I'll have some strategies that you can use, but in the meantime, it's okay to stand up for yourself in an assertive, not an aggressive way, just to say, I need to do this because it's what's best for me. And a lot of times, if you say that, then people will stop. So try that, and I'll give you more tips as we go along. Okay. So this week's mission: record everything you eat, portion size, calories, and activity, and set an exercise goal for yourself. Assuming that you're there, just remember, you are all adults. I know that you're all adults. This is kind of a framework for you to work into. So if setting an exercise goal for yourself is not appropriate for you, or you feel like there's something else you want to focus on more, that's okay. But if this is a good time for you and you want to follow along with how we're going with this, set an exercise goal for yourself, even if it's teeny tiny, and preferably teeny tiny. When I do this, it looks like I'm squeezing my nose in the video. So just remember, those are your goals for the week, as far as the food and fitness log goes. And I have to read this comment: or sabotage from your spouse. I started singing the Beastie Boys song to him every time he asked me to go out, eat, or want a blizzard. Which Beastie Boys song? I need to know. That seems like a good thing to do. Sing him a little song. Sabotage. Oh, yes. Sabotage, of course. Why didn't I think of that? Oh, my goodness. That's perfect. It depends on how serious they are and how much of a sense of humor they have, right? Whether you can sing them Sabotage from the Beastie Boys, or maybe you just need to respectfully and assertively say, hey, this is the best choice for me right now, and I'd really appreciate your support with it. Yeah. So start paying attention to detail. We talked about this a lot at the beginning when we were talking about how it went with the food and fitness log. Get out the measuring cups, get out the measuring spoons. Take some time right here, because you don't have to do this every time. You really don't. This is just kind of as we're getting this feel for it, or when you need to reset in the future. Just like me, it's been a while since I tracked, so I got them back out again and I started measuring things. Read all the labels. Make sure you look at the labels and compare it to the serving size. And not to trigger you with a food cue, but ice cream is the one that cracks me up the most, because if you look at the serving size of ice cream, it's a half of a cup. And if you measure a half a cup level of ice cream, Who eats a half a cup of ice cream? Nobody. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at those nutrition facts labels. And the serving size is important when it's on there. Try not to estimate. Take the time, like we were talking about, to enter those homemade recipes in so that you don't have to use a recipe that somebody else entered or that is just automatically in there that may or may not accurately reflect how many calories you're actually taking in. Because I noticed this week, because my son plays lacrosse, and I actually ended up having trail mix for one of my meals because we didn't want to leave the field. And the difference, the calorie difference between a half a cup of trail mix and a full cup of trail mix is huge. It's huge. So if I didn't get my serving size correct on that, I might think at the end of the day, oh, look, I have all these calories left over, when in fact I actually don't. I just didn't do my serving size, and thus I didn't do my calorie calculation appropriately. So start paying attention to that detail. We talked about exercise, but it's important for you to know that keeping track of your food intake is the number one most important step you can take to manage your weight. Exercise is awesome as a partner in tracking your food. It is excellent at helping you maintain weight loss, for overall health in general, mental health, physical health, all of the above. But when you're looking at losing weight specifically, it really is about what you eat, not necessarily how much you move, because you probably have heard this before, is you cannot outrun your mouth. What that means is it is very easy to eat more than you can possibly burn in the day. So just keep that in mind. Exercise does serve all of those things, and it is really critical, but tracking your food is the most important thing. So that's why I left you the option with the exercise goal, depending on where you're at, to make that choice. On the scale, is it correct to measure meat prior to cooking? What about other foods? So when you're selecting, if you're using an app, or if you're looking it up in your Calorie King book, whenever you do it is how you want to write it down. So if you're measuring your meat prior to cooking, when you track it, you want to write down chicken raw, or you want to look it up as raw chicken. If you're measuring it after it's cooked, then you want to look up cooked chicken, right? Because it makes a difference in the calories, because it loses water, it becomes smaller as you cook it. So it makes a difference in the calories. 4 ounces of uncooked meat as versus 4 ounces of cooked meat is actually more calories. So good question. Fight for your right. You guys are funny. I like this. Let's see. Oh yes, potato chips for the calories. That's so true. So remember your goals. Just for a second now, just reflect and think about it. What are the goals that I've set for myself, and how am I doing meeting those goals? This is where you can think about if there's barriers that you're running into, or if there's places where you need to modify that goal so that is something you can actually do. Even if that means you dial it back a little bit, pull it back a little bit. I got a little too excited when I first wrote the goal. This is too much. So let's pull it back. Write down something that you actually are going to do. Based on your physical needs, choose an exercise goal for this week. I would highly recommend that you actually write down one simple action you will take this week to move towards your goal. Even if you use your phone or your computer for your tracking, there is something about writing it down as well as thinking it that will really help you to better remember it. I'm not saying you have to, just throwing the idea out there because I have found it to be more successful to do it that way. Write down any barriers you think you may run into or that you have run into, and how you can work around those barriers. Around, over, under, through, switching directions entirely, however you need to do it. If you need to change your goal, do so. We talked about it last time. I couldn't do this, so I substituted this. That is great. The goals are not set in stone. They're something that is going to change as we go through time. You'll get it more and more dialed in, and you're going to have to look at them as you go through time because life changes. Just like the seasons change, everything changes. The only constant is change, right? It keeps changing. So try and be as flexible as you can with that. So here's some hopefully encouragement for you. You are not a helpless victim. You control your choices. It's easy to say, like, to go back to the comment about I have a spouse that is sabotaging me. Sometimes that gives us an excuse to say, I can't do it because. But I want you to think about the fact that you are not a helpless victim. You control your choices. That is the one thing that you can control in this world, isn't it? The way you react, what you do. Self-efficacy, knowing that you can do it. That's the definition of self-efficacy. It's like, if I choose to track my weight, I know I can do it. That's what self-efficacy is. Success is a combination of resiliency, which is how you bounce back from failure, commitment. I am going to do this. I am all in. I'm not leaning, I'm jumping. And choice. Those choices that you make every day. I am choosing that this is how I am going to do this. I'm choosing it. Plan to succeed. So what I mean by that is this planning that we do, right? Getting together once a week, writing down what our goals are and what our barriers are and how we're going to get around them, tracking. All of that is you planning, right? Just like you're going to plan a trip and then it's more successful because you've planned. Think about you plan so that you can succeed. So here's what to do this week, and I'll follow it up with an email for everyone. And then we have to have a Calvin. You knew I wasn't going to let you go a whole presentation with no Calvin and Hobbes, right? So speaking of physical activity, here's an out of the box way of getting some physical activity. If you happen to have a stuffed tiger to dance with, you may want to get up in the middle of the night. So yeah, Calvin and Hobbes are dancing, and in the very last frame, his mom's all tired in bed. She says, either he's playing classical music at 78 RPM or I'm still dreaming. And his dad says, first thing tomorrow morning, I'm calling the orphanage. Oh my gosh. Yeah, remember when we had records and you could just like turn it up so it went faster? That'd be fun to dance to, wouldn't it? That's my sense of humor for you. So thank you so much, everyone, for all of your comments, all of your questions. Does anyone else have any more questions before we stop for the day? Okay, well, lots of you have been reaching out to me. Please feel free to continue to do that. And let me know if you have questions. I hope you have a fabulous week. And we'll see you next week. Talk to you later.